Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all and those who are participating remotely to the January 28th meeting of the Board of the California Housing Finance Authority. I believe we have a quorum, and to confirm that, I'm going to ask Melissa to call the roll, please.
Ms. Cabildo,
Present.
Chair Cervantes,
Present.
Secretary Moss,
Present.
Ms. Lamont. Mr. Henning for Treasurer Ma. Mr. Prince,
Here.
Mr. Russell,
Present.
Secretary Sin, Mr. Olmsted for Director Velasquez,
Present.
Ms. Sotelo, Dr. White, Mr. Williams, Ms. Johnson for Mr. Acefa,
And acknowledge two folks, one of which is our new head of multifamily, Stephanie McFadden's in the audience there, who is presenting her first deal to the board. We're all very excited by this, and I'm looking forward to the presentation and the discussion with that. So welcome, Stephanie. It's great to have you on board. And I'd also like to acknowledge Rebecca Franklin here, appointed by the governor as our chief deputy director, who has stepped in to run the show after the departure of Tina Johnson Hall to Los Angeles. It's great. We've got good, strong, high caliber staff to help implement the governor's program for housing. And there's all these talented individuals pulling ahead, I think, to make this a reality. So with that build up, Rebecca, I'd like to pass it to you for your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Cervantes. Yes, once again, I'm filling in another role. Why have one job when you can do two or four? I will say the search has begun and will continue for the new executive director to fill behind Ms. Johnson Hall. Of course, we will update the board with any information we get as we get that information. But before I go any further, I do want to mention that our thoughts are with all of the first responders and the victims of the fires in the LA area. The Newsom administration has, of course, made this a top priority for all agencies. So while we're talking about other business today, it is important to note that above all, we stand ready to provide support to those who have experienced this horrible tragedy. And we will be coming to the board with some options probably in the month of February. One of the lessons learned from the COVID relief funds was we want to make sure that we take a step back and understand kind of all the different sources of funds and how that's supporting those people in the LA area and the victims of the fires, so that we can make sure that we're not missing, the missing middle or, leaving anyone out. CalHFA's nimbleness and flexibility sometimes is, as our director of financing says, our secret sauce. So we want to make sure that we're being complementary and not duplicative in any efforts we do to support those people that were, devastated by the fires. As far as our own portfolio, we did have one property in Altadena that was evacuated and did have some damage. We're working with that property very closely to understand the damage and support them through their kind of recovery efforts, including probably looking at forbearance, et cetera. So mimicking the executive orders that the governor had already set forth to help support them in that. Also, I just want to make sure that we say publicly and remind everyone that the victims of these fires are eligible to enter in, to use CalHFA programs. So we actually waived the first time home buyer requirement for anyone that is a victim of a natural disaster. So as the rebuild and whatnot happens, CalHFA programs will be there to help support these people. As far as the other kind of news in the government space, there was the budget announcement by the governor kind of in the mix of the chaos that happened this month. Our director of legislation is going to go over a little bit more about kind of what affects us as far as the announcement of a new housing focused agency. But I'm not going to try to, I'll let Meji kind of take that part on. Another thing I wanted to update the board on is our My Access program, which board members will remember that was a new program, our new program offering from our single-family programs that came out of our New Opportunities Committee. This program, which is funded by bonds, provides additional down payment or closing cost assistance above our My Home program. We intend to announce the program to lenders next week and give them about a month to prepare for our soft launch on March 3rd. The soft launch means that we're not going to go out and do a full marketing and there. That allows the lenders to kind of get used to the product, understand it, allows us to understand the kind of the mechanisms we need to do behind the scenes to support that program. But we will obviously give the board updates as that rollout happens. Additionally, another idea that came out of the New Opportunities Committee was the RFI that we designed to gather information on the feasibility of a potential new construction multifamily affordable housing program in partnership with local entities. The RFI was released in November and had an optional deadline for a high-level response on January 3rd, and the final deadline will be next month on the 28th. Even though they were not required to submit info on the first deadline, we did get 20 local public entities and 3 other entities response to that initial deadline. So we're going to be getting more information kind of in the later part of February, and we will also be bringing that information back to the board as information comes out, probably looking more into the month of March or April, though. On a high note, a celebration is that earlier this month, CalHFA Fiscal Year 22-23 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report received the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting. This is the 7th year in a row that we've received that honor. So it's also very important, yes. And also, we will be getting another round of financial report released very quickly as we have been able to kind of streamline those processes and get those reports out a little bit quicker than we have in years past. And that's really a testament to our financial services team, their agility to kind of, when you get into these audits, I think everyone knows it's kind of all hands on deck, and they were willing, ready, and able to kind of meet that need whenever the data came in. So we're really excited about that, and the next year's report coming out so timely. That's all I have as far as updates from the agency. I am going to conclude with something that I'm very passionate about, but also slightly embarrassed because you might see a familiar face in the video we're about to show you about all the great work our amazing team did do to help Californians through the California Mortgage Relief Program. It's a little timely, I guess, now that we're talking about mortgage relief again. But I did want to take a moment to celebrate kind of the last 3 years of successes that we have had in helping Californians recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. And I was just talking to Secretary Moss before that about how, it's good to take a lot of lessons learned and apply that going forward on how we can be most impactful in our current situations. Also working with HCD, I want to highlight the partnership we've had with them about the lessons learned. CalHFA is a lender, and so we've learned to lean on our partners on granting funds and kind of really making impactful relief. So especially in the recovery and from these wildfires, their team over there is amazing. So I would want to highlight that. But for further ado, I will painstakingly watch my face on the camera, so we'll look at the screens for the video.
This has restored my faith in government. Government really is for the people. This program is for the people who are struggling.
It sounds so good to be true. This time, it's true. We have been able to help people who are in dire situations. We have been able to touch people who felt like they were losing their homes.
Sometimes people didn't care about the program until the last minute. And while it's stressful and it takes a lot of collaboration, the team was I've never heard the team complain, we have to save this house. This auction's happening in 48 hours, in 24 hours. What do we need to do? And everyone was always willing to jump on board because we were saving a person in a home that person lived in.
I received 27,687 and some change help. A California mortgage relief paid my mortgage, me, little old me, from August 1st until March 31st. You don't have to feel embarrassed. Feel proud. Nobody wants your home more than you.
Having families being displaced, having kids being taken from the school that they're currently are enrolled in. I know we don't think about the whole process, but like when a family is displaced, the whole community is destroyed.
In a country where owning a home is still the #1 way to build and hold on to generational wealth, the Mortgage Relief Program is saving families throughout the state of California. We're here to help, especially for those who most acutely felt the social and economic ramifications of COVID-19.
The program prioritized reaching socially disadvantaged communities. We did that through a data-driven approach. We wanted to understand the needs of these communities, who these people were, and how we could best serve them with these funds. We did that through targeted media, paid media. We also did that through community-based organizations.
Let's talk about the ways that the program is expanding.
That's what this program is for. Help you stay in your home.
El programa de rescate hipotecario de California le otorga hasta $80,000.
Still money available for anyone who needs help paying for their mortgage because of COVID issue.
A dueños de vivienda elegibles, y este dinero no se tiene que pagar.
We know that the COVID-19 pandemic hit especially hard in communities of color, in immigrant communities, and low-income communities, both from a health perspective and an economic perspective. I'm encouraged to see that the agencies involved in implementing this program are already working hard to identify and engage with the communities experiencing the most need when it comes to mortgage assistance.
California has been in the forefront of responding quickly and well and understanding what they could do to simplify the program so that those who are applying did not encounter difficult procedures by which to qualify.
This expansion represents months of careful consideration and creative solutions that make sure that the most in need get help.
We also wanted to look at the process while it was going. We wanted to make sure that the application was easy to do, it was quick, that it wasn't going to take hours, that all of the documentation that we required was easily available to the average homeowner.
County tax collectors have seen the toll that the pandemic took on those who struggled to make their property tax payments. So, by extending relief to homeowners who pay these taxes directly to the county, the program will help this vulnerable population, which includes many senior homeowners, get back on track.
People contacted us and were saying it wasn't just a grant, it was relief. It was a moment to be able to breathe, that they were able to sleep at night because their home wasn't in jeopardy of being lost anymore. For me and everyone on the team, hearing those stories just confirmed we were doing the right thing.
I rejoiced. I jumped and shouted from the front door to the back door. It was like, maybe hitting the lottery or getting Publishers Clearinghouse.
I do think that deserves a round of applause. That's really well done. Thank you.
Thank you. I also want to highlight Director Sotelo and Director Russell were kind enough to sit on the board of directors that helped shape this program as well. So upon the many other roles, we appreciate the support we've gotten throughout the program.
Let me just say you made it very easy. I think mostly as committee members, we observed the good works of the staff here. It's just really remarkable, the nimbleness with which folks were able to respond to and tailor the program to the needs as we encountered new information. So I will take very little credit. I give it all to you and your staff.
And the comment that struck me from one of the participants was, nobody wants your home more than you. And I thought that kind of encapsulated it. And, really want to salute the work of staff to implement this program to sort of help keep people in their homes and continue the integrity of communities. And I know we'll be working with Secretary Moss and her team to see what we can do to help with a broader effort to address the issues in the wildfires in Los Angeles and the Southland. So maybe some lessons learned from this program we can use to help with that process as well. So I'm looking at the Secretary here. I know she's got some good thoughts on this. And I would like to move us along with that to item 4 on the agenda, and I've got Erwin Tamas here. This is sort of technical, I gather, but important. And I'd like to, if you could walk us through with the proposed resolution and discussion.
Allocated an earlier first round in 2025 with applications due actually today. This has caused us to have insufficient authority to apply for volume cap in Corp Round 1. Resolution 25-01 increases the amount to $3.5 billion for this round. We will be back in March 2025 with our normal set of financing resolutions for the board's consideration and approval. So again, this is just an amendment of the board-approved resolution from last year, and we will again be back for the calendar year 2025 in this coming March. This just summarizes the memorandum that I presented to you in your board packet, and I am available to discuss any questions that board members may have.
I'd like to see if there's any questions from board members on the resolution or what's behind it. I'm pretty sure I have a handle on this, but the idea is to sort of keep us in the game given the CIDLAC schedule.
Essentially, we have 2 round 1s within a 1 year of authorization, right? Our authorizations generally go from March to March, and since there was a round 1 put in January of this year, our approved authority is insufficient to accommodate that. So this is, again, increasing the approved authority.
And given that we're right at the deadline, I gather, as soon as assuming, I don't want to prejudge this, but assuming the board approves the motion, someone's going to run down to CIDLAC to make sure we're in the hopper on transactions, correct?
Yes, this will approve. Again, with the authority, we are able to apply for volume cap in this round.
Right, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to go out of my way from the Treasurer's Office and on behalf of CIDLAC just to thank you and CalHFA for their work on this issue.
Great.
Appreciate it, and I'd like to make the motion to approve.
Well, Thank you, Director Hennessy. I'm going to have to hold on for just a second. I want to make sure, and then we're going to come back to you on that one. I'd like to see if there's any public comment on this item. Does any members of the public? Melissa, if you could check.
Anyone in the audience interested in speaking, please raise your hand. I see no hands raised.
Director Hennessy. I'd like to make a motion to approve. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Great. Thank you, Secretary Moss. I have a motion on the floor to approve Resolution 2501. Melissa, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Cabildo?
Yes.
Chair Cervantes?
Yes.
Secretary Moss?
Aye.
Ms. Lamont?
Yes.
Mr. Henning? Mr. Prince?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Fegels? Yes. Mr. Olmsted?
Aye.
Resolution 25-01 is approved.
Great. Thank you. Someone's going to have to get their track shoes on to get down to SIDLAC. We don't want to miss this opportunity. Thank you.
It's important. It is important for the agency.
It is. Our next item is a final loan commitment for Holton, Maine, and this is Resolution 2501. Our new head of multifamily program, Stephanie McFadden, will present, and you can introduce your...
I'd be happy to introduce Steve Gallagher. He's our housing finance chief. And we also have Jennifer Beardwood over here, the housing finance officer, who is in the lead on this deal. This is the first of our MIP 24 deals that are coming before the board. We expect 8 or 9 deals this round will exceed that $15 million limit. That brings us to the board seeking your approval for our final commitment, and that'll be over the next 3 or 4 months. As a new person here at CalHFA, I'm looking forward to working with all of you. We, on the multifamily program side, are going to be presenting a MIP overview for your benefit as well as mine to just kind of lay out our goals for the program and the overall framework that we're approaching this program with. We are already looking towards MIP 25 and anticipate getting that rolled out to the public in the next couple of weeks. That meeting in February will give us a chance to have deeper conversations about aspects of the program that the board may want to dive into in more detail. You'll notice in your package today that there's a new format for the staff report. We designed it intentionally with an executive summary that brings up the sort of most important points about the deal for your review and approval. I invite you to give me directly any feedback on that format. It's a tool for you, so we want it to work for your process as best we can. We are bringing to you today a deal called Holton, Maine. It's actually in the Los Angeles area, but Pomona is out near Ontario, pretty far from the fires. And this project is 160 units of tax credit tax credit units, ranging between 30 and 70% of AMI on the income targeting. This deal is pretty clean, I would say, and it's with a developer that we have some good experience with. They are very well known, not just at CalHFA, but in the industry as a whole. We are bringing this to you with a recommendation to approve with a couple of exceptions. These are exceptions that we're actually seeing a little more frequently and anticipate bringing to you again going forward. One is that the exit test shows that in year 17, upon a refinance, there will be enough proceeds to pay off our first lien loan, which is a little over $20 million. But there will not be enough proceeds to pay back all of the MIP loan. This is partially a result of the second exception. We have a standard requiring that surplus cash flow be split 50-50 between CalHFA and the developer. But in this case and in many other cases that we're underwriting right now, the tax credit investor is requiring that excess cash flow go to paying off any deferred developer fee within a defined period of time. In this case, it's 13 years is the anticipated time frame. Once that deferred developer fee is paid, our cash flow split will revert to the 50-50 split that is our standard. So that results in less of MIP being paid down during that 15 or 13-year period. But we recommend approving those exceptions. As I said, these are driven by the structuring requirements for the tax credit equity investor. And I am available for any other detailed questions you might have about this project.
Great, thank you very much. Are there questions from members of the board on this project or any part of this transaction? Don't see any. I do. You touched on this, and we talked a little bit before, and this, I guess, this sort of deferred repayment of the MIP subsidy, if you will. And we've seen this before. I gather, is this just a dynamic in the marketplace now with respect to tax credit investors? Maybe just expand on that a bit, because we'll probably see this again.
I expect we will see it again. Yes, this is something that we're seeing in terms of requirement by the tax credit investor, literally to enter this.
I'm really glad you brought up that point. I think that it's worth looking at actually increasing the MIP loan. If the $5 million deferred developer fee is going to generate like $3 million of tax credit equity. The question I would have is, can you drop the deferred developer fee, right? Increase the MIP loan and actually start getting money back starting in year one so that we can put money back out as opposed to waiting for 13 years. I know people are going to say that's not what developers do. It's what I did in Santa Clara. Right? We looked at a project, we said, well, we could have a large deferred developer fee, or we could put a little bit more money in up front and start getting the cash flow to repay other loans. I think it's worth looking at. Maybe not 100% of the deferred developer fee goes away, but some portion of that, and start seeing some dollars come back to us earlier than year 13.
Great, yeah.
If that all makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're talking to our developers about possible structuring options, and we'll definitely explore that. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Prince. Any other questions? Yes, Director Limon.
Well, welcome, Director McFadden.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, I just wanted to commend you on the template. I thought it was really, really well done, really easy to read, and really informative. I think if anything, in the executive summary, we can have just the risks highlighted up front, and perhaps just the cost per unit.
Okay.
And other than that, I think it's just really great job.
Thank you for that specific feedback.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the board? Secretary Motz, I'm sorry.
Sorry, just one. Stephanie, has construction started? This is just, okay, great. That's it. I was like, where are we?
We have to close first, and then they can start construction right away.
Well,
yeah.
We'll be there for a groundbreaking.
Yes.
I was like, we need units yesterday.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
Hear that. Any other board questions or comments?
Well, I just have a comment that it's, what is that? Yeah, no, I know. I just really, what's going on? Is anybody else in? I'll put it far away. No, maybe I shouldn't say anything then. No, I just want to say I'm excited to see something in
Cell phone, you might want to move there.
Hello? Okay. Excellent. No, I just want to say I'm excited to see this in LA County. We don't see enough projects in LA County, and I think it's a really strong development team, so I'm excited. Just want to say that
We do
I'm
have
grateful to see this in LA County.
Yeah, we do this for MIP 24. How many deals are in LA County? We think we have at least 3, and then some in the LA environs as well. So, yeah.
By the way, HCD, the rescue go, thank you. Director Russell.
Yeah, I just want to say I really appreciate this being the kind of infill project that it is. We have in the past financed some things on the urban fringe that rankle a little bit. This is exactly the kind of infill that we need. When you look at the surrounding context, this is going to be a great community development investment. So appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you, Director Russell. Other comments or questions from the board? Sorry.
I was just going to
Director
say that
Lamont, sorry.
because of where Pomona is situated, it also serves the Inland Empire. And so it's a great project. I grew up not far from this project, so I'm excited to see this.
It's great.
Great, thank you. Okay. Yes, please.
I just wanted to highlight to the board that the item we'll be bringing in February about the more holistic what MIP is and what the board sees. We would, I just wanted to challenge the other directors of the board to kind of that conversation to be fruitful from what your vision would be and kind of these different ideations around that. So Director Prince kind of ignite that, but that's kind of the conversation. And we would be bringing back the MIP, kind of the materiality of those dollars and what it means to the CalHFA as an agency. So just wanted to put that kind of bug in your guys' ear that we'll be wanting to have a more robust discussion at this level with the board next month.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Deputy Franklin. Okay. Wait, I don't want to miss anyone. Any last comments, questions from the board? I don't think I see any. Melissa, can you see if there's any public comment, please?
If there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak now, please raise your hand. There are no hands raised.
Thank you. So unless there's any other questions or comments from the board, I'd like to see if there's a motion to approve Resolution 2502, sorry.
Motion to approve?
Thank you, Director Lee-One. Thank you, Director Hennessy. With that, we have a motion on the floor to approve Resolution 2502. Melissa, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Cabildo?
Yes.
Chair Cervantes?
Yes. Here.
Secretary Moss?
Aye.
Ms. Lamont?
Yes.
Mr. Henning? Yes. Mr. Prince?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Fiegels?
Yes.
Mr. Olmsted?
Aye.
Resolution 25-02 is approved.
Thank you all very much. And thank you both very much. Congratulations on the approval of your first transaction. It's great. Well done. Now, I believe agenda item 6 is going to be pulled. Okay, so that'll come back maybe some other date. I'm going to move to item 7, which is our legislative update with our Meji Tebar is going to go walk us through. And there are a number of things going on at the federal level. I don't know if you want to comment on those as well, but that might be something we might want to spend a few minutes chatting on as well, in addition to the state. So thank you.
Yes. Great. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Meji Tabar, Director of Legislation. I think most of you know me. Here to provide a legislative update. The last time I was in front of the board for a presentation was mid-session last year. So we're pretty early in the legislative session. Want to give you a sense of some early bills as well as the budget. Just a reminder, my role at CalHFA is really to monitor and advise on relevant legislative, political, and policy matters, so not providing opinions on bills themselves. Just want to remind everyone, I'm here to provide the information and to talk through some of that. First one to start on the state budget. So this is an overview of the state budget process and what's proposed in this year's budget. It may look familiar to past years. We've passed the January 10th governor's budget proposal. Governor Newsom unveiled his 25-26 state budget proposal. You can see, can you go back real quick? Thanks. In this chart, the actions by the governor are in yellow, legislative actions are in blue, and the three-way budget agreement is in green, so we won't know the final budget until June. So just a reminder, we're very early in the process. Getting into the more important details, of course, is the housing and homelessness in the state budget piece. Housing and homelessness remains a very important piece of the governor's budget. I think we're all aware of the significant process we've made over the past few years in terms of creating units, financing units, providing technical assistance, holding cities accountable. But the administration really wants to focus on an all-of-state government approach. And so building on some of the momentum from the previous years, the administration is proposing to establish a new California Housing and Homelessness Agency. So you may have heard of this. The intent here is to create a more integrated and effective administrative framework to address the state's housing and homelessness issues. The specifics of the governor's proposal in the January 10 budget were very limited, but I wanted to focus on 3 priorities that are called out, which is affordability, efficiency, and accountability. These are going to be helping to inform more details in the governor's proposal, which will come out in May. That's going to be the revised budget. And so just thinking about this agency itself, the next steps are going to be pursuing it through the Little Hoover Commission. And so we will have some more details coming up here. But the administration intends to lay out details of that reorg, including the structure of new agencies and transition plan, by the May revise. And so more details to come. I'm sure there's a lot of questions there, but we will have some details forthcoming. Another big part of this, as we're all very acutely aware, are the fires down south. And so while the January 10 budget and all of this information was coming out, we obviously had shifting priorities. And so we know there's a number of housing bills that are coming out specifically to deal with some of the rebuilding efforts in Los Angeles. And so just a reminder that, while the new agency is very important, we're trying to prioritize some of those shifting needs. And so I also just really wanted to touch upon the one number that was called out in the January 10 budget, which was the $100 million in general funds for encampment resolution grants. That's important, of course, because homelessness is directly correlated to the lack of affordable housing, and so just wanted to point out that number. In terms of state tax credits, that is usually not mentioned in the January 10 budget, and that we will learn more in the May revise as well. All right, jumping into the legislative session itself. We are in the first year of a 2-year session. We have a bunch of new state legislators. It's a really exciting time, record levels of women in office. At the same time, all the new legislators mean there are leadership changes. There are 2 key changes in leadership that I want to flag for the board, which are chairs of the State Assembly Housing Committee and Senate Housing Committee. Assembly member Matt Haney is the chair of the Housing Committee for the Assembly, and Senator Wahab is the chair for the Senate Housing Committee. So we will see how the changes in leadership will play out over the next year, over the next 2 years. But then the other key aspect of this legislative session that is really exciting is leadership deciding to limit the bill introduction numbers. And so in previous years, the assembly members were required to put out 50 bills per 2-year session. That has been lowered to 35. And on the Senate side, they were required to put out 40 bills, and this also has been lowered to 35. So what this means is hopefully significantly fewer bills and hopefully more substantive bills. So I think that's really exciting. And then just a reminder of where we're at in the timeline of the state legislative process. Again, very early on. The last day for bill introductions is in February, and the bills don't get to the first house until May. So right now, we are really waiting for referrals for policy committees in the first house. So there's a lot left in the legislative session, but of course, just want to remind where we're at. This year, the legislative session ends September 12th. And then again, early in the session, but wanted to call out one bill that directly names CalHFA. This is Assembly Bill 57 by Assemblymember McKinner. It is specifically calling out a set-aside for descendants of slaves for CalHFA's down payment assistance programs. This is a very similar bill to Bradford's bill last year, which was actually part of the reparations package. Again, early, it was introduced, and we have we're waiting for referrals on it, and so more to come on that bill soon. And then I did mention the efforts by the legislature to focus on rebuilding in Los Angeles. The Assembly has put out a number of bill proposals trying to deal with rebuilding as well as trying to keep Californians from being displaced. We anticipate a number of more bills will come about in the Senate. This is just on the Assembly side, but things like trying to stop new building standards, accelerating permit review, general streamlining efforts. There's been a focus on construction of ADUs, trying to figure out ways to build faster, get folks in, and then build the main structure after. And again, keeping Californians from being displaced or evicted. So we anticipate this is going to be a big part of the legislative session, and more to come. Of course, there's going to be a federal update as much as I can. You know, we are very early in the year still. The tax bill is top of mind. We're definitely focusing on it. We see the tax bill as a real opportunity to pursue some of those federal priorities that we all have been pushing for many years. So increasing the capacity of low-income housing tax credits, supporting efforts to improve the mortgage revenue bonds. There's going to be an interest in disaster recovery tax credits now, and so this is both an exciting time. We're getting engaged. I was in DC 2 weeks ago with NCSHA. I'll be back there in March with Rebecca and Erwin and Marina Wyant. And so, you know, we're trying to stay engaged and talk to the California delegation and make sure that they are focusing on those priorities that we have really pursued. I also wanted to flag the two key federal committee nomination hearings. I believe Scott Bessent was just confirmed, actually. So he's the new Treasury Secretary. We know Scott Turner is up for HUD Secretary. And so those are going to be very important roles to keep an eye on. One thing that stood out to me when I was in DC a few weeks ago was that not a lot of folks there knew people in the transition team. And so there was not a good insight into what sort of policies HUD was going to pursue. And so they said the key is going to be to understand what leadership's policies are. And so those confirmation hearings, I think, were somewhat telling to see where, you know, Scott Turner's mind was. And so anyway, there will be more to come there as we see those key leadership roles being filled, and we'll have more to report back after March. And yep, that's it. So we'll take any questions that you have.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see if there's any questions from members of the board. Secretary Moss?
Thank you, Majid. And less questions, more just comments around some of the highlights that you mentioned. So I wanted to just highlight that the Governor and the legislature in special session just approved a $2.6 billion package for emergency relief for the fires. We signed that last week. Those resources will be helping with the crisis response as well as some of our rebuilding efforts that are going on. Some of the exemptions and relief, certainly that CalHFA and our teams are doing, as well as our folks at DFPI. So just wanted to provide a little bit of context for where that work will be situated. We are reporting regularly to the legislature around our efforts and what we're collectively doing. We have our sort of unified command team that meets every day to talk about how we are coordinating efforts across state government. So just wanted my colleagues to know that we are actively leaning in and pivoting toward recovery. Governor just announced today some of our public-private partnership efforts as well to sort of supplement the places where FEMA resources will not be available to folks. We see that there's a dynamicism with our federal partners, and so we want to make sure that no Angelino is left behind during this transition. So just wanted to share some of those details with my colleagues.
Thank you, Secretary Moss. Other questions, comments? Director Russell.
So first off, I guess, the Little Hoover Commission, I'm not familiar with the process. Does that involve public hearings?
I believe so. I don't know the ins and outs of the Little Hoover Commission, but maybe
does.
Secretary Moss does. Yeah.
Commissioner Russell, yes, it does. So just in a nutshell, we are going to set up a housing and homelessness agency. We also are going to we're proposing to have a commiserate consumer protection agency as well. So my agency will be lifting up the critical nature of both of our sides of our house in this effort. The Little Hoover Commission is a coordinated body that we will be submitting the proposal for the formation and reorganization of the agencies. That will be reviewed by this commission. There will be a public process for that review, and they will be making a recommendation to the full legislature of whether or not to move the reorganization forward. So it's more of an up-down vote that the legislature will make once they receive the recommendation from the Little Hoover Commission. And the Little Hoover Commission will have a very extensive process that I think spans 45 to 60 days. So more to come on that.
Well, thank you for that. And then information, I just wanted to highlight that in the city of San Diego, Mayor Todd Gloria instituted an executive order for all housing permits to be approved within 30 days, 30 working days on the city side. Obviously, you can't add both. I would just recommend that anyone who wants to understand that better, you can talk to the Development Services Department, City of San Diego. They instituted a number of practices that made it possible to not just meet, but beat the executive order deadlines.
Thank you, Director Russell. Any other comments or questions? If not, I have one, but Director Lewan.
The only question I had is, given all of the federal freezes that we're seeing across the board, can you outline some of the biggest risks that CalHFA faces in terms of any potential funding pauses, freezes, cuts?
Yeah, as you can imagine, that's all very new, and I think we're still trying to understand the impact. I would say CalHFA is probably more protected than other departments, but I would say we'll probably have more to report soon. I'll just go back.
And obviously, I've been over here,
Yeah.
like checking my phone constantly, trying to figure out what's going on. So, I mean, I feel like the biggest issue when it comes to housing is going to be the Section 8 payments, right? And if that's frozen across the board, which it is right now, we're not having access to the system that gives disbursement to us. But that could mean, for just Santa Clara County, it's $50 million a month, right? And so I don't know what the statewide Section 8 dollar amount is. I would think that then that leads to this idea, if you don't get the payment as an owner, you can't make your mortgage payment. I think there could be this incredibly scary waterfall. Evictions, I think we talked about that as a possibility. Could this be used as a tool to evict Section 8 families so you can, property owner can raise rents? I thought that was a scary concept, but I think that I know, alarmist is not a good way to be. We have to have a little bit more data, but it's pretty alarming to really think about what's going on.
So if I could interject, because I'm trying to catch up on the news as well. So Section 8 payments have been frozen? I thought
Yes, at this time, we have as a housing authority, we have no access to the federal funds.
okay, so I thought that those were under contract, but maybe that's
Right.
you think?
There is a OMB guidance that came out saying rental assistance is not covered by this freeze, but right now, as I said, we don't have access to our dollars. So they say one thing and the action's another. I'm assuming that in the next day or two, it's going to get unfrozen, but that's just because I don't see how you don't make that kind of payment to the country.
Yeah.
It's like 2 million families.
Everything's rapidly evolving. Systems are getting shut down and reopened, and I think OMB said they're going to come out with more guidance this afternoon. I'm sure they are scrambling, and I don't know if they realize the impact of what the order was.
The word chaos comes to mind, but thank you. Other questions? Clearly, a lot of things are in flux. I mean, we're at the beginning of legislative session. You know, there's all the Michigan up in Washington right now. But you know, I really appreciate your keeping us informed. And I'm sure we'll be, you know, maintaining a dialogue here as we are trying to be sensitive to what's going on in the world around us. I don't know if I need unless there's any other questions or comments, Director Russell?
So just, I think that obviously this is all brand new news, but I'm hoping that we can have a discussion that includes an analysis of some of our vulnerabilities at subsequent meetings.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
Yeah, I think that we would, as they're coming out, we can definitely survey our programs and funding. I'll say from the agency's perspective, I only know of one program, the 811 program, that we would have impact from the agency perspective. But as far as Director Prince's comments, as a contributor to the housing continuum, we need to look beyond our balance sheet and see where our scope and impact could be helpful. So we will definitely take both under advisement, and we can bring this back as a board item next month where we have more information as to what has landed. It's, you know, and maybe we'll have a little bit more information. But to both ends, I think that we need to recognize that we're part of a bigger part here. I think from the agency's perspective, we are insulated a little bit, but that doesn't mean that we can't redirect our thinking and strategically help, you know, in the housing continuum as a whole.
I think that yesterday's action, current environment is one thing, but the longer kind of conversations about some of the other housing policies that have been talked about, like the mixed status households. So the low-income housing tax credit program does not require citizenship to receive housing assistance. And so that means if there's like this kind of enforcement of saying a mixed status household doesn't get any kind of housing assistance, I'm kind of curious what impact that has on families, right? We've looked at it in Santa Clara County. We have 200 families, about 600 kids who are citizens, but they're part of these households where one of the parents is not. And the potential is to lose funding for those families and to evict them from housing, right? So I'm kind of curious what happens within the tax credit program. And again, that's going to have like major reverberations. The other big issue is going to really be around the DEI work, right? That I think is at the foundation of so much of the work that we do. I heard it in the video today about some of the priorities that happen within our program here at CalHFA. I'm kind of curious if it really plays out that there is this cleansing of DEI work. If there's federal funds, what's going to happen to our dollars? I think it's just really kind of complicated to think about, or not complicated, scary to think about this cliff that we're looking at that could have like large ramifications. So I think we should be talking about not just today's events, but like what's in the future. And I think we're all connected.
I think this is very much a stay tuned moment here. Any other comments, questions? And
I just want to add one
Yes.
more thing, which was, you know, I think that brings up kind of the similar things that we saw happen in the first administration. And I would just say, I know that folks were thinking about it then in terms of the mixed status rule, right? And at least for us, in terms of thinking about housing policy, I do think we're trying to be more forward-thinking and try to be prepared for some of those outcomes. Obviously, a lot is happening, and we'll have to see how it pans out. But yeah, I'm hopeful that we have some experience and we'll be ready to respond. More to come, and we'll be happy to report out over the next few months as well.
One last thing to add, sorry, on the NCSHA, our National Association, has their legislative conference at the beginning of March. We obviously send a delegation from within the agency, but if any board members were interested in joining us, we can certainly get you the information as schedules aligned. If you wanted to come pound the pavement with us on Capitol Hill, we'd be more than happy to coordinate with anyone.
I think it'd be really interesting to think about all of the different legislative conferences happening, not just NCSHA, but also like NARO, CalHFA are having theirs in March. Low-Income Housing Coalition has theirs as well. I think that we should be collaborating with all of these different delegations. I also started looking at what's the date, because I would love to be part of this delegation, but I'd love to also have this group also think about NARO, CalHFA, Low-Income Housing Coalition, and some of the other efforts so that we're unified.
Melissa, I think I need to see if there's any public comment. Can you check and see if there is any?
Is there anyone in the audience that's interested in making a comment at this time? No hands are raised.
Right. Meji, thank you very much. You've given us a lot to think on.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate it. So item 8 on the agenda is informational written reports. We have information on the single-family loan production. I'd like to see if there's any questions the board has on that we could discuss, or Ellen Martin can come. Any questions, comments on that? The written reports. Yes, Director Limon.
The only question that I had was, what's been the impact of the fires on our portfolio for single family?
I'm going to have Director Martin come up. I kind of loosely know the numbers, but she'll correct me, and then I look bad, so I'll just have her actually answer the question right the first time.
Hi, good morning. Ellen Martin, Director of Homeownership. We are still working with our various servicers to compile the numbers of affected homeowners from the LA wildfire disaster. The numbers are fairly low. As we know, a lot of the areas that were affected are largely areas that have a significant amount of intergenerational home ownership. And so our initial review of our portfolio indicates that, less than 24 homes within the portfolio are affected, but those numbers are still coming together, and we're continuing to scan.
Thank you.
Maybe just a general question. This might be a curveball, but in the bigger picture, the impression I had is that the single-family housing market has been slowing down. I mean, interest rates have stayed high. What are you seeing out there?
Interest rates remain high, and despite reductions in from the Federal Reserve, we are still seeing mortgage rates maintain significantly higher levels, and we have not seen much relief over the last few months, notably because the market is anticipating additional inflation pressures, and mortgage rates are in fact tied to the 10-year Treasury as opposed to the Federal Reserve rates. So mortgage rates continue to be a challenge, high home prices continue to be a challenge, low inventories continue to be an enormous headwind in the homeownership market. From CalHFA's standpoint, we see our business remaining strong, underpinned not just by activity associated with Dream for All and the high down payment assistance that Dream for All offers, but also the fact that the down payment assistance offered through our more flagship program, namely My Home, is really one of the only available sources of assistance for low and moderate income home buyers out there. So we are seeing our market share maintain ground despite the headwinds that we do see in the market. But rising unaffordability, increasing and remaining, the fact that interest rates remain elevated I think are a very big headwind to the success of the program and something that we're watching very closely.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Yes, Director Limon.
Sorry, one more thing. I think the one major thing that was not mentioned is our insurance crisis in slowing down our numbers. I think one of the things that I think it's been on all of our minds as we've seen the devastating fires all over Southern California is what's going to happen to our already broken insurance system. So my question is, could we do some sort of analysis or report during our next meeting on where we stand on our insurance implications and what all of state government is doing and federal government is doing on that effort, and what the impact is on the CalHFA portfolio?
We certainly can do the bigger analysis. I think that that's a conversation that we've already been having kind of in the, before we stand up, or HCD actually stands up the workforce or the housing work group. We've kind of been having ad hoc conversations about that. We've actually unfortunately have received some stories already of impact of that. So I think it's a conversation that we've been participating in with the agency, and that's been forefront on the administration's mind as well. But we certainly can coordinate some more information and have a bigger conversation with the board.
Thank you. Other questions? I think, Melissa, I'm looking to you first. Do we need open this to public questions as well? Thank you.
Are there any members of the audience interested in making a comment? No hands are raised.
Okay. And with that, then we're on to item 9, which is other board matters. We've talked about a few different items to sort of follow through on in a subsequent session. And I know that Rebecca's keeping track of this, but insurance, it's a huge topic area in housing. I say that as someone who's lost insurance. So,
Same here.
So, yeah, we all raise our hand on that. And so that's a topic area. We'll have a drill down into the MIP program and the kind of focus around that in our next session. I think that'll be very, very helpful. And if there are other topics maybe we haven't talked through that board members might like us to take on later on, when we can agendize it and really deal with it. Director Russell,
I just want to call attention to the public comment we received yesterday, and what is the appropriate, I realize we don't discuss public comment, but it does trigger perhaps a discussion, a memo. I'd like to understand what is happening with regards to our role and the situation that's occurring with certain ADU contractors.
We can certainly create a memorandum, I'm looking at Claire, around that. We are, as response to to put assurance, I guess, for the board members, is that we have been working very closely and providing information when appropriate to both regulatory agencies or bodies and law enforcement. So I will have to look to Claire on what we can share, but I would like, in the meantime, while we figure that out before the next board meeting, I would like the board members to know that the assurances that we have referred or participated in any data requests or information that we have gotten about this specific topic. But yes, I understand why the board members would like as much detail as we can give.
Chair, if I might, what we're talking about is we received a public comment before the meeting. That public comment is posted on the website so other people can go and read that, and the board members have a copy in front of them. There is a little bit of information redacted in that. We don't typically try to redact information, but there was some personally identifiable information that we wanted to protect the member making, or the person making the comment, but it is available on the website.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other topics that board members might want to have us raise at a subsequent session so we can agendize it?
We have the federal program.
The federal program changes, yeah. So we'll keep, I see our Chief Deputy Director is keeping good notes here. Thank you for bailing me out. Are there any public, I'm going to move on to see if there's any just general public comments. This is the next agenda item on matters related to CalHFA.
Other than the comment that was provided in writing and it's posted, are there any members of the audience that would like to make a comment at this time? I see no hands raised.
Thank you. Well, with that, this is maybe, I think, the shortest CalHFA board meeting I can think of in a long time. So we're just fun that we're banking time here, folks, for what will be a longer session. Director Cabildo?
Are we gonna get a report from staff about this issue?
We will provide some sort of response by the next board meeting about that issue.
Yeah. It's not an agenda item. We really can't discuss that, but staff will follow up. Saying,
or not. I can speak generally. Of course, I can't speak specifically. Whenever, Director Cabildo, we receive, your legal department at CalHFA receives allegations of fraud or other improprieties related to a program or even a program that's adjacent to ours, we immediately reach out to all of the other state entities whom are our partners that have enforcement authority. And then once we turn over information to them, generally, we're not going to be making any comments because A, we don't want to obstruct justice, but B, because open investigations are kept absolutely confidential. So to the degree, Chair Cervantes, in response to your question, anything that we can share with the board, we would, but I should tell you that I suspect that will be scant information.
okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay. So unless there's anything else, I'm going to call this meeting adjourned, and we'll pick it up at the next session. Remember, I expect it'll be a longer one, but thank you for all for participating.